Do you ever wonder how folks in the countryside seem to stretch every dollar and make the most out of every meal? Before fancy kitchen gadgets and expensive convenience foods, country cooks developed ingenious tricks that saved money, reduced waste, and created some of the most flavorful dishes you've ever tasted. Today we're exploring 25 hillbilly kitchen hacks that modern cooks have completely forgotten about. Let's start with using bacon grease for cooking. Now here's something your grandmother knew that somehow got lost along the way. Instead of pouring that liquid gold down the drain after frying up a batch of bacon, country cooks always kept a jar right next to the stove. That rendered fat was precious, and for good reason. Back in the day, every farmhouse had what they called a grease jar, usually an old coffee can or mason jar that sat on the back of the stove, collecting every drop of bacon drippings. This wasn't just about being frugal, though that certainly played a part. Bacon grease adds a depth of flavor that no store-bought cooking oil can match. Think about it. Those crispy bits of pork, that smoky essence, all captured in that golden fat. Frying potatoes in bacon grease transforms them from ordinary to extraordinary. Eggs cooked in just a tablespoon become rich and savory. Country beans simmered with a spoonful of bacon fat develop that authentic southern taste that people drive miles to experience. Even cornbread gets a magical boost when you grease the pan with bacon drippings before pouring in the batter. The fat creates a crispy, golden crust that's simply impossible to achieve any other way. Store this at room temperature for short-term use or refrigerate it for months. Your dishes will thank you. Making homemade buttermilk. Remember when buttermilk was a staple in every refrigerator? Country cooks used it for everything from biscuits to fried chicken, but they also knew you didn't need to run to the store every time a recipe called for it. Here's the trick that's been passed down through generations. Take 1 tablespoon of plain white vinegar or lemon juice and add it to 1 cup of regular milk. Give it a quick stir and let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. What happens next is pure kitchen magic. The acid in the vinegar or lemon juice causes the milk to curdle slightly, creating that tangy, thick consistency that buttermilk is known for. The proteins in the milk react with the acid, mimicking the natural fermentation process that creates real buttermilk. This substitute works beautifully in pancakes, giving them that fluffy texture. It makes biscuits rise higher and become more tender. Fried chicken marinated in this mixture comes out juicier than you ever imagined. At about 15 cents worth of ingredients compared to $3 or $4 for store-bought buttermilk, this hack saves serious money while delivering the same delicious results. Freezing leftover biscuits. In country kitchens, nothing went to waste, especially not biscuits. Smart cooks learned early on that making a double or triple batch wasn't just efficient, it was strategic meal planning at its finest. Once those golden beauties cooled down completely, they'd wrap them individually in wax paper or aluminum foil and stack them in the freezer. The secret that made this work so well was letting them cool completely before freezing. Warm biscuits create condensation that turns into ice crystals, making them soggy when reheated. But properly frozen biscuits can last 2 to 3 months and taste remarkably fresh. When that craving for a warm biscuit hit, all you needed was a quick trip to the freezer. Pop one in the microwave for 20 to 30 seconds, and you've got a biscuit that rivals anything fresh from the oven. Some folks prefer to reheat them in a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes, wrapped in foil to keep the moisture in. Either way, you've got homemade biscuits available anytime without the hour of prep work. This hack alone probably saved country families hundreds of hours over the years. Using potato water to make gravy. Here's a trick that might surprise modern cooks. That cloudy water left over from boiling potatoes isn't wastewater, it's liquid gold for gravy making. Country cooks discovered that potato water contains natural starches that help thicken gravy beautifully, while adding a subtle potato flavor that complements any meal. Think about what's happening when you boil potatoes. Some of that starch leaches out into the water, creating a slightly thickened liquid that's already part of the way to becoming gravy. Instead of using plain water or stock, starting with potato water gives you a head start on thickness and adds a silky texture that's hard to achieve otherwise. To make gravy from this magical liquid, simply heat it up in a pan. Add some flour mixed with a little cold water to prevent lumps, and whisk constantly. Season with salt, pepper, and a splash of milk or cream for richness. The result is a gravy that seems to taste more like home than anything from a jar or packet. This no-waste approach meant nothing from the kitchen ever went down the drain unnecessarily. Using cornstarch for thickening. Before expensive specialty thickeners and fancy reduction techniques, country cooks relied on one simple, inexpensive ingredient that's still unmatched in versatility. Cornstarch, that humble white powder sitting in the back of most pantries, can transform thin liquids into silky gravies, glossy pie fillings, and perfectly thickened soups. The trick that separates good cooks from great ones is knowing how to use it properly. Never add cornstarch directly to hot liquid, or you'll end up with lumps that no amount of whisking can fix. Instead, create what cooks call a slurry by mixing cornstarch with an equal amount of cold water until smooth. Then slowly drizzle this mixture into your hot liquid while stirring constantly. 1 tablespoon of cornstarch can thicken about 1 cup of liquid to a medium consistency. For pie fillings, you might use 2 tablespoons per cup for a firmer set. The beauty of cornstarch is that it creates a clear, glossy finish, unlike flour, which can make sauces cloudy. At just a few cents per use, this Hillbilly hack delivers professional results without the professional price tag. Country cooks knew this secret long before culinary schools started teaching it. Making homemade tortillas with flour and water. Sometimes the simplest recipes are the most valuable. When bread ran out and the store was miles away, country families knew they could make a quick flatbread with ingredients they always had on hand. All you need is flour, water, and a little salt. Mix about 2 cups of flour with 3/4 cup of warm water and half a teaspoon of salt. Knead the dough until smooth, let it rest for 15 minutes, then divide it into small balls. Roll each ball thin on a floured surface and cook in a dry hot skillet for about 30 seconds per side. You'll see bubbles form and light brown spots appear. That's how you know they're done. Adding a small amount of fat, like lard or vegetable oil, makes them more pliable, but even without it, these simple tortillas work wonderfully. Spread them with butter while still warm for a quick snack. Use them as wraps for leftover meats and vegetables. Roll them around beans and cheese for a filling meal. This basic recipe, born from necessity, has fed families through hard times and good times alike. Saving chicken bones for soup. In country kitchens, a roasted chicken was never just one meal, it was the beginning of several. After enjoying the meat, those bones became the foundation for one of the most nourishing and flavorful foods known to mankind, homemade chicken stock. The process couldn't be simpler. Save all the bones, even the ones people have eaten from, because they'll be boiled for hours anyway. Toss them in a large pot with some onion, celery, carrots, and whatever herbs you have available. Cover everything with cold water, bring it to a simmer, and let it cook for at least 4 hours, preferably longer. What emerges is rich, golden liquid that far surpasses anything from a can or carton. The slow simmering extracts collagen from the bones, creating a stock that turns gelatinous when chilled, a sign of proper technique. Use this as a base for soups and stews. Cook rice or grains in it for extra flavor, or sip it warm with a little salt when you're feeling under the weather. One chicken can easily yield a gallon of stock, essentially giving you free soup base from what most people throw away. Using a mason jar to shake salad dressing. Forget those expensive bottles of dressing with ingredients you can't pronounce. Country cooks figured out long ago that the best salad dressing comes from a mason jar and about 60 seconds of effort. Take a pint-sized mason jar and add your ingredients. A classic vinaigrette starts with 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. Add a teaspoon of mustard, which acts as an emulsifier to keep everything blended. Season with salt, pepper, garlic, and any herbs you like. Now here's where the mason jar proves its genius. Screw on the lid tightly and shake vigorously for about 30 seconds. The jar's narrow shape creates a vortex that blends everything thoroughly, and the mustard helps keep the oil and vinegar from separating immediately. When you're done, the jar becomes the storage container. Keep it right in the refrigerator door, give it another quick shake before using, and pour directly onto your salad. No bowls to wash, no whisks to clean, no extra containers needed. Plus, you know exactly what's in your dressing, no preservatives, no artificial flavors, just pure fresh ingredients. Cracking eggs with one hand. Walk into any country kitchen during breakfast, and you might see the cook cracking eggs into a bowl using just one hand while the other hand stirs something on the stove. This isn't showing off. It's pure efficiency developed over years of cooking for large families. The technique takes practice but becomes second nature. Hold the egg in one hand with your thumb on one side and your first 2 fingers on the other. Tap the egg firmly against the edge of the bowl or a countertop, creating a single crack around the middle. Then use your thumb to push one half of the shell away from you while your fingers pull the other half toward you. The egg falls cleanly into the bowl. Starting out, you might get some shell in there, and that's normal. Country cooks kept a small bowl nearby for such occasions. With practice, you'll develop the feel for just how hard to tap and exactly how to separate the shell. The freed hand can hold another egg ready to crack, grab a spatula, or wipe up a spill. In kitchens where efficiency meant the difference between getting everyone fed and running late, this skill was essential. Making homemade pancake mix. Sunday morning pancakes were a tradition in many country homes, but mixing dry ingredients from scratch every single week seemed wasteful of time and effort. Smart cooks started making large batches of pancake mix to store for quick breakfasts any day of the week. The basic ratio couldn't be simpler. Combine 6 cups of flour, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of salt. Mix thoroughly and store in an airtight container. When pancake cravings hit, scoop out 1 cup of mix, add 1 egg and 3/4 cup of milk, stir until just combined, and cook. That's it. The whole process takes about 5 minutes from start to first pancake. You can customize the base mix with additions like powdered buttermilk for tangier pancakes or cinnamon and nutmeg for a spiced version. Some cooks add a few tablespoons of powdered milk, so they only need to add water in the morning. This approach saves money compared to boxed mixes while tasting significantly better. One batch can easily make 20 or more breakfasts. Turning stale bread into croutons. Nothing illustrated country resourcefulness better than the transformation of stale bread into crispy, golden croutons. Bread that had gone past its prime for sandwiches found new life as the perfect topping for salads and soups. The process starts with cutting the bread into cubes. About 3/4 of an inch is ideal. Toss these cubes with melted butter or olive oil, making sure each piece gets a light coating. Spread them on a baking sheet in a single layer, season with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and dried herbs like thyme or oregano. Bake at 375 degrees for about 15 minutes, stirring halfway through until golden and crispy throughout. These homemade croutons have a flavor and texture that store-bought versions simply cannot match. They're crunchier, more buttery, and seasoned exactly how you like them. Plus, they solve the problem of wasted bread. Store them in an airtight container at room temperature for up to 2 weeks, though they rarely last that long once people start snacking on them straight from the jar. Using a lid as a pot holder. Sometimes the simplest hacks are the most brilliant. Country cooks discovered that, in a pinch, a pot or pan lid could serve as a makeshift trivet or pot holder for hot dishes. Think about it. Those lids are designed to withstand the same temperatures as the pots they cover. They're heat-resistant, sturdy, and always nearby when you're cooking. When you need to set down a hot pan and can't find a trivet, just grab a lid and flip it upside down. The lid creates a stable platform that protects your countertop or table from heat damage. The rim keeps the hot pan slightly elevated, allowing air to circulate underneath. While this might not be a long-term solution, it saved countless countertops from scorch marks when the proper tools weren't within reach. Making homemade jelly with overripe fruit. Before modern refrigeration and grocery stores on every corner, overripe fruit presented both a problem and an opportunity. Country cooks saw those soft, bruised fruits not as waste, but as the perfect candidates for making homemade jelly and preserves. The natural sugars in overripe fruit actually make it ideal for jelly making. The fruit is sweeter, softer, and breaks down more easily when cooked. Start by washing and chopping the fruit, removing any moldy or truly spoiled sections. Cook it down in a heavy pot with just enough water to prevent sticking. Once soft, mash it thoroughly and strain through cheesecloth for clear jelly, or leave the pulp for a jam consistency. Add sugar, typically equal parts fruit and sugar by volume, along with pectin if needed for thickening. Bring to a boil, skim off any foam, and pour into sterilized jars. Properly sealed jars of homemade jelly can last for a year or more, preserving the taste of summer for cold winter mornings. 1 bushel of overripe peaches that might have been thrown away becomes dozens of jars of precious preserves. Using cast iron for everything. If there's one piece of equipment that defined the country kitchen, it's the cast iron skillet. These heavy, virtually indestructible pans were often passed down through generations, improving with each use. The secret to cast iron's magic lies in its ability to retain and distribute heat evenly. Unlike thin aluminum or stainless steel pans that develop hot spots, cast iron maintains consistent temperature across its entire surface. This makes it perfect for achieving that golden crust on cornbread, the perfect sear on steaks, and the crispiest fried chicken imaginable. Country cooks used their cast iron for baking biscuits, frying eggs, making cobblers, and even baking bread. The same pan that cooked breakfast could go directly into the oven for dinner. With proper care, meaning seasoning with oil and avoiding harsh soaps, these pans develop a natural non-stick surface that rivals any modern coating. Many families still cook with cast iron skillets that have been in continuous use for 100 years or more. Turning leftover coffee into ice cubes. Here's a hack that coffee lovers wish they'd known about years ago. Instead of pouring leftover coffee down the drain, country cooks froze it in ice cube trays. These coffee cubes served a genius purpose. When added to iced coffee, they kept the drink cold without diluting it like regular ice does. As they melt, your coffee stays strong rather than becoming watery and weak. But that wasn't their only use. Bakers discovered that coffee cubes added to chocolate cake batter or brownie mix intensified the chocolate flavor without making the dessert taste like coffee. Smoothie makers tossed in a cube or two for a subtle energy boost. Some cooks even added coffee cubes to beef stews and gravies for depth of flavor. At a time when wasting food was practically unthinkable, this simple hack turned leftover morning coffee into a versatile kitchen ingredient. Using vinegar for cleaning pots. Before expensive specialty cleaners lined store shelves, country kitchens relied on one powerful, inexpensive ingredient for tackling the toughest cleaning jobs. White vinegar, the same stuff used for pickling, could rescue pots and pans from the worst burnt-on messes. The technique is straightforward. Fill the burnt pot with water, add about a cup of vinegar, and bring it to a boil. Let it simmer for 15 minutes or so, then turn off the heat and let it cool enough to handle. The acidic vinegar loosens the burnt food particles, making them easy to scrape away with a wooden spoon. For really stubborn messes, add a couple tablespoons of baking soda after removing from heat. The fizzing reaction helps lift even carbonized food from the pan surface. This method saves pots that might otherwise be thrown away and cost just pennies compared to commercial cleaners. Turning leftover cornbread into croutons. Just like regular bread, leftover cornbread found new life as croutons, but with a distinctly southern twist. These golden, slightly sweet cubes added authentic country flavor to salads and soups in a way that regular bread croutons never could. Cut day-old cornbread into cubes, brush with melted butter, and season with salt and perhaps a little cayenne for heat. Bake at 350 degrees until crispy and golden, about 20 minutes. The natural sweetness of cornbread creates a wonderful contrast when paired with savory salads or added to a steaming bowl of soup. These croutons turn ordinary dishes into something special while using up cornbread that might otherwise go stale. Using an old coffee can to strain gravy. Before fancy kitchen strainers and chinois became common, country cooks improvised with what they had available. An old coffee can with holes punched in the bottom became a perfectly serviceable strainer for lumpy gravies and sauces. The technique worked well because the holes could be made just the right size to catch lumps while allowing smooth gravy to pass through. Hold the can over a bowl, pour the lumpy gravy through, and collect the silky result below. This hack exemplified the country kitchen philosophy of making do with what you have rather than buying specialized equipment for every task. Making homemade seasoned salt. Store-bought seasoning blends have their place, but country cooks knew that making your own seasoned salt cost a fraction of the price while tasting significantly better. The basic recipe starts with regular salt as the base, then adds complementary flavors according to taste. A classic blend combines 1 cup of salt with 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of paprika, and half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Mix thoroughly and store in a jar with a tight-fitting lid. This versatile seasoning enhances everything from fried chicken to roasted vegetables, grilled meats to popcorn. Adjust the proportions to suit your preferences. Some cooks add black pepper, dried herbs, or even a touch of sugar to balance the flavors. Once you start making your own seasoned salt, you'll wonder why you ever bought the expensive store versions. Using baking soda to tenderize meat. Tough cuts of meat were common in country kitchens, but cooks developed a simple trick to make them more tender without expensive meat tenderizers. Sprinkling a small amount of baking soda on meat before cooking helps break down the proteins, resulting in more tender texture. The technique requires just a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda per pound of meat. Sprinkle it evenly over the surface and let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. This is crucial. The meat must be rinsed thoroughly before cooking, or it will develop an unpleasant alkaline taste. Once rinsed and patted dry, cook as normal. The science behind this hack involves the baking soda raising the pH level of the meat's surface, which prevents proteins from bonding too tightly during cooking. The result is noticeably more tender meat, especially with tougher cuts that would otherwise require long, slow cooking to become palatable. Using a clothesline to dry herbs. Long before expensive dehydrators and freeze-dried herbs in fancy packages, country cooks preserved their herb harvests the old-fashioned way, by hanging them to dry on clotheslines or string across the kitchen. The process couldn't be simpler. Gather herbs in small bunches, secure them with string or rubber bands at the stems, and hang them upside down in a warm, dry, well-ventilated area. Within 1 to 2 weeks, the herbs dry completely while retaining much of their flavor and essential oils. Once dry, strip the leaves from stems, crumble them, and store in airtight jars away from light and heat. Homegrown herbs dried this way have significantly more flavor than store-bought dried herbs, which may have been sitting on shelves for months or years. This method costs nothing beyond the string used to hang them and connects modern cooks to centuries of kitchen tradition. Making homemade ice cream in a bag. Before electric ice cream makers, country families discovered they could make frozen treats with nothing more than a few simple ingredients and 2 plastic bags. This method entertained children while producing genuinely delicious ice cream. In a small, sealable bag, combine 1 cup of heavy cream, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Seal it tightly, removing as much air as possible. Fill a large bag halfway with ice and add half a cup of rock salt or regular salt. Place the small bag inside the large bag and seal. Now shake vigorously for 5 to 10 minutes. The salt lowers the freezing point of the ice, creating an environment cold enough to freeze the cream mixture. The shaking keeps the mixture moving, incorporating air and preventing large ice crystals from forming. The result is creamy, smooth ice cream made with your own 2 hands. Kids love the activity, and everyone loved the reward. Using a fork to mix pancakes. Professional chefs might reach for their whisks, but country cooks knew that a simple fork often works better for mixing pancake batter. The fork's tines create just enough agitation to combine wet and dry ingredients while leaving some lumps, which is actually what you want for fluffy pancakes. Overmixing pancake batter develops the gluten in flour, resulting in tough, chewy pancakes. The fork's gentle action mixes just enough, and those lumps dissolve during cooking anyway. This technique takes less effort, requires fewer dishes to wash, and produces better pancakes than vigorous whisking. Sometimes the simplest tool is the best one for the job. Peeling tomatoes with hot water. Removing tomato skins for sauces and canning used to be tedious work until country cooks discovered the blanching method. A quick dip in boiling water makes those skins slip off effortlessly. Score a shallow X on the bottom of each tomato with a sharp knife. Have a bowl of ice water ready nearby. Drop tomatoes into boiling water for 30 to 60 seconds, just until you see the skin starting to pull back at the scored marks. Immediately transfer to the ice bath to stop the cooking. Once cool enough to handle, the skins peel away with gentle pressure from your fingers. This technique processes dozens of tomatoes in minutes, making canning season far more manageable. The blanching doesn't cook the tomatoes significantly, so they're still perfect for fresh sauces and salsa. Saving bacon fat again for seasoning cast iron. We mentioned saving bacon grease earlier, but it deserves another mention for a specific purpose: seasoning cast iron cookware. The fat creates an excellent seasoning layer while adding flavor that transfers to food. After cleaning your cast iron, which country cooks did with salt and a brush rather than soap, rub a thin layer of bacon fat over the entire surface while still warm. This fills any microscopic pores in the iron, builds up the non-stick seasoning layer, and protects against rust. Over time, this regular treatment creates a surface so slick that eggs slide right off. The bacon flavor becomes part of the pan's character, adding subtle savoriness to everything cooked in it. This simple maintenance routine keeps cast iron performing beautifully for generations. Thanks for joining us on this trip down memory lane. If you enjoyed discovering these hillbilly kitchen hacks, give it a like and share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe.